to episode 1 of season 2. I've just decided it's season 2.
Love it. I love that. I'm gonna be seasons. We're seasoned book clubbers. Today we're gonna be talking about The Fury by Alex Michaelides. So stoked for this. It's the first act of this Why Done It. Can't wait to get into that.
Before we do, Morty's with us.
Oh yeah, little Morty. He decided he wanted to come and join. Say hi. Just a little sniff of the mic.
It's a hi. It's a hello.
Yeah, he wants to be a part of this, so we're letting him. So if you don't like cats, you can find another podcast.
So sassy.
If you don't like cats and you don't like books, this isn't for you.
Should we get into it?
Yeah, I think we should just get into it. We were staying at like the bar last week when we were having a drink and getting excited for this book, that we were like, this is the book club for people who actually love books and really want to like dig deep and get really into like themes and characters and setting, and this book is actually perfect for that. Like as soon as I started reading it, I realized just how perfect a first novel this is for season 2.
Yeah, it's great. It's like, I feel like it's got a little something for everyone, you know? It's got these really deeply thought through characters. Morty,
That's
it's
Morty's lunch.
lunchtime.
He's having so much fun, he doesn't want to go. Oh, he's gonna go. He'll always choose food
We'll
over.
come back after.
I'm sure he will.
We want to know about what you thought about The Fury. It's like not enough cats or birds.
He does love murder. Just kidding.
Where'd you read this book?
I read it in a few different places. I did think that I was gonna read it all in like one sitting on this couch with my coffee, and I did do that for one of the 3 sittings that it took me. The other one I read like in the bath, and then the other one I read in bed one night with a whiskey.
Me too, actually. I read it all, like all 100 pages. So we were doing Act 1, right? This episode. I read it all on my couch, also with whiskey. I drank some writer's tears this time.
Love writer's tears. So good, so fitting. Let's get into it. Let's actually do a little bit of a summary of what we've seen in Act 1 so far.
Yeah, go for it.
So in Act 1, essentially, we have our main character, Elliot. We don't know who he is yet, but he's our narrator. And the very beginning actually starts with a prologue. And I feel like most thrillers start with a prologue. It always seems to be that moment when the person dies. We don't really know who the characters are yet. Like, we don't really know who died sometimes. We just know, like, there is a dead body, and that's how this one was set up. And he had a really interesting opening, which is never open a book on the weather. So I think we knew right away this was going to be a little bit of a breaking of the fourth wall kind of book, which it is, as we're going to discuss. But we see the murder kind of happen. All we know in the prologue is that it's at these ruins. It's obviously in Greece. There's a lot of wind happening, because even though he says not to open a book on the weather, he does open it on the weather because it's about the wind, and he feels like that's his exception.
He does that a lot, eh? He's like, never do this, and then he does that. He proceeds to do it anyway.
I love
so it's
that.
kind of like he's setting all these boundaries for himself and then also breaking them, which is another aspect of that is when he's like going into all the characters. So he says, you know, I'm gonna let you know about the characters in order of importance, which is really telling, like, why are they in order of importance?
I forgot about that.
Right?
That's true.
I think, okay, so curious to know your thoughts on this, because he introduces characters in kind of a half introducing kind of way. He'll be like, I lived with Barbara for a while, but we don't know who Barbara is till much later. Is she not as important?
And
is
even then, we barely know much about her besides the fact that she's a writer. She's clearly one who is prolific and has like made a lot of money off of it, because he talks about the fact that when she died, he never got her money, but he got her house, and it was dilapidated, and that was kind of interesting. Yeah, we don't really know much more about her besides it sounds like it was a bit of an abusive relationship between the two of them.
Yeah, he says that he was her sort of chauffeur, sort of her escort. They weren't together. It wasn't, you know, they weren't lovers, but they lived together for many, many years. So I think he assumed that she would leave her royalties from her books to him, but she didn't. And he thought he'd be set for life, but he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's gonna come up later too, because everyone seems to be super wealthy in this book, and
Yeah, except Elliot.
Yeah.
Because he talks about how he flies coach when everybody else is in first class. There is definitely that like dichotomy of wealth in the book, which is really interesting. It's also interesting that you said the thing that they weren't lovers, because I took escort in the like sex worker kind of way.
Oh, interesting.
But maybe it wasn't meant to be like that. I don't know.
I took it in like the old worldly, like, I'm going to escort you to the ball.
Oh my gosh, that's probably what it is. Okay.
I don't know.
We're gonna find out.
It might be a bit of both. But yeah, so those are two of the characters. And then there's Lana. She's like the main character, the movie star, whose island this is. Lana is the person who's gonna end up dead, and we know that pretty early on. So a lot of this is sort of unfolding, and he makes it really clear it's not a whodunit, even though we don't know who done it yet. It's a why done it, and he wants it to be, well, Elliot wants it to be sort of a unpacking of their unraveling.
Mm-hmm. And it really is, because I think a lot unravels in that first act. Okay, pause. Heather and Nat pause the record because cats don't care that you're recording a podcast.
Yeah, so there's Lana.
She almost feels like a bit of like an Audrey Hepburn kind of character, like the kind of person who is really sought after, really famous. The world loves her, not the type of actor who's polarizing by any means, which I think we're starting to get Kate is. I feel like she's Kate. Definitely polarizing. I have a lot to say about Kate. But Lana almost seems like this angelic kind of figure that the world loves. Like even when they describe the way that she's dressed, like when they went to dinner that night in Mykonos, it was in this like white dress that shimmered like jewels. Like she has this kind of angelic
jewels in her hair.
Yeah. It's wild. Like the descriptions were so well done, but I definitely got the feeling that Lana's this kind of perfect person, which makes sense that she's the one to die. Like the person who's perfect and not super complicated is usually, the one to be offed at the beginning.
I wonder, because I'm questioning that, because I don't trust Elliot, and I feel like maybe he's definitely in love with her, right? Like he's pretty clear about that early on. So I think that maybe the way she's being portrayed is because of that. Because they also go into, her husband, Otto, who, helped propel her career. Although Elliot says he wasn't responsible for it, she would have gotten there anyway. Maybe just he helped accelerate it a little bit. But anyway, he ends up dead. And it might be natural causes. Sounds like he was much older, but I wonder if that's going to be a part of it. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead.
Jump ahead. I love this. This is what book club is all about.
You talked a little bit about the play within a play sort of aspect. So I'd love for you to go into that a little bit more, and I wonder if this sort of plays into that play in a play.
Yeah, the play in a play I think is really interesting. I gotta go to my notes, but the play within a play is Agamemnon, and I might be saying that wrong, but it's the tragedy of Aeschylus. Oh my god, I'm butchering this. Do you know how to say it?
No,
We're
doing our best.
Aeschylus. Okay, clearly should have looked these up before. But anyways, it's a tragedy. The character, this character Aeschylus, he's killed by his wife Clytemnestra, and Clytemnestra is a character that is being played, that Kate is playing in this sort of production that's about to be put on somewhere in the U.S. I believe. I kind of get the vibe that it was in the U.S. Maybe it was.
They're based in London.
Oh, it's in London.
But,
that's my own biases, just assuming it's the U.S. No, I think you're right. It was London.
We are Canadian.
True. But we're just so close. We're so influenced by the States. So if you do a little bit of digging into this play, you discover that Agamemnon, I'm just gonna commit. Agamemnon is killed by his wife, Clytemnestra, who's played by Kate. And Kate's actually really struggling with this role. Like that's kind of how we're introduced to her. She's kind of at the theater. Her director is trying to get her into character, and she's being she seems like she's a bit of like a belligerent character. She has substance abuse. It's very clear throughout. There's many moments where she's over drinking, where she's using cocaine. I think it starts with her taking like a ton of Xanax.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
She's struggling with a lot, it sounds
Truly,
like, right?
Truly. I think in this opening chapter where we see Kate, and remember that Kate is the second person that's introduced to us after Lana. It goes Lana then Kate. So according to Elliot, we don't know how reliable he is. She is the second most important character here, unless you count Barbara, because he does mention Barbara earlier on. So
yeah,
we'll see.
But not like fully introduced, right? So that's my theory, that maybe Barbara is less important in this story at least. So I think the order of importance is importance in this story of this murder.
I agree. So Kate's really struggling with this role, and there's some really great like meaty quotes here that talk about her mindset. It's very interior and how she feels about playing this role and why she's struggling with it. And on page 17 it says, she just didn't feel comfortable in the part. She felt lost. Clytemnestra, the original femme fatale. This is all paraphrased, by the way. She killed her husband and his mistress. What a gift for an actor. Something to sink your teeth into. But Kate's character was remaining bloodless. Bloodless. I love that. She seemed unable to summon up the requisite Greek fire in her belly. Somehow, she needed to burrow her way into the skin, into the heart and mind of the character, discover a small chink of connection that would allow her to inhabit her.
Something's gonna go down and Kate's gonna be involved is what I'm seeing.
I think this is a moment where Alex Michaelides really wants us all to assume that Kate is the killer.
Yeah.
Whether that's accurate or not, this is a thriller. I have a feeling it's probably not going to be the case. But it is really interesting that he is kind of offering these curiosity seeds where it's like, Kate needs to become this character. Kate needs to take on this role, and she's struggling because she's bloodless. That's really interesting in the story of a murder, and a murder that's called a whodunit, which I think is very interesting. This book opens with an epigraph that I think it says like, character is destiny, which kind of feels, again, is that a curiosity seed? Is that more so us, this moment with Kate, is that him really trying to hammer home that like she's definitely a potential murderer? I think we're gonna discover they're all potential murderers, but
also, is it character in the play, or is it character as in your own character?
Yeah.
So I find there's a lot of false sort of starts. Maybe he's planting a lot of seeds, and I think some of them, well, definitely some of them will be red herrings, like Nikos.
Yeah, Nikos, the like caretaker.
The caretaker, yeah. He also is enamored by Lana. Everyone seems to be. He seems like he keeps to himself, but then there's this moment where Kate finds like a rotten carcass in front of his cottage. So in the setting, on this island, there's three structures. There's the main house, there's a ruin of some sort, which I pictured like a theater, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then the third one is the caretaker's cottage. And it sounds like they're in close proximity. So Kate is living on like outside the house,
almost
right?
Like, I get the vibe, it's almost like a pool house.
Yeah.
Kind of like just that extra little house that wealthy people
Yeah, exactly. And so she's like walking past the cottage and she sees that. So there's that. And then also, doesn't it sound like there's a random menacing presence?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of describes the menacing presence. It's near the end of the first act when Leo has just smoking weed that Elliot has given him.
Yeah.
And he sees this like figure, and I think it said it was like half human, half beast or something. And then was it revealed to be something else?
Yeah, it was just the trees. It was just the shadow from the moon being cast on the trees.
But you're right, like it's definitely like setting is a character.
Yeah. There's also another moment though, when Nikos is kind of observing Kate and Jason from the shadows, and then he's like, oh shit, there's someone else here. I'm not alone. Also looking at her. So who is that, too? I mean, there's rumored to be a ghost, so maybe it's the ghost.
That's true. Oh, that was something we never brought up, and that was established early on. Everyone from Mykonos is like the closest city to this little island, will not go onto the island because they believe it's inhabited by ghosts.
Yeah, and Nikos is one of the only people who would.
And the only reason it seems that he was okay with that is because he's a widow and he was so distraught by his wife's death, which we don't know how she died, do we?
Oh yeah,
that's But she died, and then he just wanted to escape reality, and so he was fine with being on the island alone all the time, except for in these, brief moments of the year when Lana and Otto, when they would visit, or then after Otto's passing, she would gather some of her friends and they would go there together. Those are the only times that Nikos kind of experiences human contact.
Yeah, exactly. So I think at a moment there, they talk about how he's lived on the island for 25 years now.
Wow.
I think the math isn't mathing. At first they were like, he was 25 when he started. Now he's in his late 40s, but it's been 25 years.
Oh my god.
So I thought he'd be in his 50s, but give or take.
We'll give him a pass. Writing's hard. Let's talk more about
Jason.
Oh my god, Jason. Okay. Jason's interesting.
No one likes him.
And why should they? Then again, Elliot might not be reliable. And much like The Silent Patient was, and spoiler alert if you haven't read it, the narrator is not reliable in that book.
Okay.
So Elliot has actually, and you already kind of alluded to this, he's confessed that he is telling the story from his perspective, and his own feelings towards things might infiltrate the story. He says he's going to try his best to take himself out of it, but he doesn't know how well he will succeed at that, which I find very interesting.
It's like a disclaimer.
Yeah, so, but yes, anyways, Elliot really hates Jason. And is that why you really hate Jason? And I want to know what you think about that.
Yes, but also he's really rude to Agatha.
Yeah. Agatha,
she's like been Lana's helper, sort of was a nanny for a while, but is also like more than a helper, I think they say at some point, because she's her confidant and she's been around for so long. And the way that Elliot describes it is that Lana finds her at this local restaurant and just immediately just like forms this bond with her. And Agatha's just been like traveling with them ever since. Like she lived in, was it LA for a bit with her, and then London, and then also like when they go to the island, she's there.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where I guess they just kind of fell in love, in that kind of caretaker mentality, in the way that it's like, this person's going to take care of me in a way, and it seems like she's very close to Lana and even to her son Leo, but she doesn't necessarily like Jason, and rightfully so, it seems. It was funny, I forgot about the fact that she was a server, because there was something about the owner of the restaurant was very upset that he had let her be the server that night, because he like never saw her again, I guess. She kind of took off with Lana that night.
Yeah, and it's also like a status thing, kind of, right? Because is it Babis who's the owner of the restaurant?
Yes.
So now Agatha kind of like is placing orders at Babis's restaurant, and then he's bringing like, so it's almost like the dynamic's different, and he probably doesn't like that either, because he's like, I think he's kind of described as being sort of hateful, right?
I totally forgot that it was that restaurant.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Now it makes sense to me why there was that moment of the owner being upset. Yeah, I told that one over my head, but yeah, it was the restaurant that they go to in Mykonos, and it's supposed to be like the place to go, and it's very beautiful. But you're right. Like, can you imagine? Like, she's the server there. She's like, catering to his, his business, and now
yeah.
she is a patron there that he has to serve and wait on. That's really interesting.
It's really strange, and he's the sort of person who's like putting on an act for everyone around him, but like not for people that work for him, so they get to know the real him. And Agatha is one of them, and so she's not, he can't. Now that she's a patron, he can't fool her. So maybe that's part of their dynamic too.
That's really interesting. Do you think that this like thread of story of like Babis and Agatha is going to continue throughout the book, or do you think that was just kind of like an interesting portal into like Agatha's background and that connection to the area?
That's interesting. It might be sort of background. I mean, we'll see. Like, I'm not quite sure because there's something about the locals. I think we'll find out more as it unfolds because they seem to know more about the secrets of the island, right? Agatha's grandmother was rumored to be a witch, they said, or something like that. And
I love that.
Yeah. So I think
femme fatale.
right. Maybe that'll tie into, the wind and the ghost and all of that as well.
I love it. You're getting even more excited about this book as we discuss it. Jason, oh my gosh, sorry. So we started and then kind of went off a little bit, but because we talked about Jason and then we were like the person that he really treats poorly, and it's very clear, is Agatha. But Jason, we don't really know a lot about, do we? Like, we know that he tries to be rough and tumble, and he definitely wants to be this sort of like uber masculine person, which is why he has these guns that he keeps hidden, and he shoots birds, and Agatha gets a little annoyed because she's like, what am I going to do with these pigeons? This isn't worth anything. Like, the amount of work it takes to pluck these or whatever you do with a pigeon and then make them for like a measly dinner is not worth it. But she does it anyways because she knows it's like what makes him happy. But yeah, we know that he likes guns, that he tries to be really masculine, that he can be very cruel, and that he might be having an affair with Kate, which is interesting. Am I missing anything though? Like, is there more about his background?
He's a businessman. We don't know more than that. He later on we find that he's had issues with juggling other people's money, so I figure he's in finance. And he's trying to get Lana to sign a contract, and he's being really cagey about it because she seems really smart about this kind of thing. She's not just going to sign it. He's basically just trying to get her to sign it without reading it, and she's like, send it to my lawyers and then I'll sign it. And he's like, fine, never mind. I think something is happening there.
This is a little bit of a tangent, I promise I'll bring us back, but like, I love that we're doing these in sections because I'm like, I forgot about this and I forgot about that, and oh my god, I'm gonna start paying more attention to this because I did kind of forget that storyline that he was trying to get Lana to sign these papers, and she's like, I'll send them to my lawyer, and that made him very angry. So clearly there's some sort of thing there with him needing money. We know that he owes someone a lot of money, and the only person who can get that kind of money very quickly is Lana.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. You're right. So maybe the contract has something to do with that, right?
I would imagine, but who knows? Like, we weren't told, and when you're not straight out told in a book, like, you never know what could come of it. So Jason's interesting.
I wonder, and I think maybe the other thing that could be happening is maybe it's not an affair, maybe they are sort of tied together in some sort of way around all of this, like losing the money sort of situation. Although, now that I say that out loud, it sounds like Jason's work is probably more the reason for losing money, but we'll see.
Maybe he invested in something and it didn't do well. Maybe he has a gambling addiction. Like, who knows?
Maybe he invested Kate's money.
Ooh. I need to dig further into this, like, Greek tragedy, because there is, like, Clytemnestra didn't just kill her husband, she killed his mistress too. So there is an affair happening in that play within the novel.
Okay.
And it feels like there's some affair happening. And also, sorry, I feel like we're totally derailing our notes, but this is just too fun.
Yeah.
That reminded me of, like, remember at the restaurant, and and we were already talking about what they were wearing, but like Lana was in this like beautiful white dress, and then Kate was wearing this red scarf.
Yeah,
and
it was a shawl.
It was a that's right. shawl, and Lana comments on it as kind of a way to diffuse Kate, who's like getting very belligerent. She was obviously wasted at this point, and Lana's like, "Oh, I love your scarf," which is, it shows how like vain Kate is, that kind of diffused the situation. And Kate's like, "Oh, I sponsor this like little girl in this country. I can't remember what the country was, and she made this for me. And like, obviously, it's not something that everyone would wear, but we're way over time." She's like, "It's not something that everyone would wear, but you know, it's very, you know, special to me, and that's why I'm wearing it." And then that shawl comes up again in the last scene of the act when Lana is dead, but it's described as the body has the red shawl wrapped around it.
I missed that. Wow, that's big.
So there was some sort of connection between that scarf and Lana and her death, and I do find, and I just think that that's interesting to kind of keep that love triangle in mind, or potential love triangle. We don't really know, but just comparing that to the like character, or sorry, the play within the novel. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind as we keep reading through.
So do you think that the shawl might be a way to throw us off, or do you think that Kate is involved firsthand?
I don't know.
I feel like it could go either way. I feel like he's messing with us.
I had a moment where I wasn't even sure if it was Lana that was dead. But they did say Lana's dead. That's how it ends. And I was like, okay, fine. But when they mentioned the shawl, I was like, is it Lana? Is it Kate? But then they ended with Lana's dead, so.
Yeah, me too, actually. I think it is Lana. And I had that moment too. For a second, I wasn't sure if it was Leo, but then I realized it's Leo who finds the body first. We haven't even talked about Leo.
Oh my god, Leo. Let's talk about Leo.
Let's talk about Leo. That's Lana's son, and he's 17, and seems that he wants to, you know, follow in his mother's footsteps. Oh, also, he's very close with his mom.
Disturbingly so.
Yeah, you think so? I
don't
didn't pick
know.
up on that.
Do you find they kind of treat him like he's younger than he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's true. I find it really interesting that he's telling us everyone's ages. You know, that's not very common usually. So I've been making notes of like who is how old, sort of thing. But it's helping sort of piece together their dynamics too. But yeah, he is applying to schools and acting schools, and I feel like, yes, they're close, but maybe there's some sort of competition. So I was wondering, my theory is that he's involved in the murder and there might be some sort of competitive angle there.
I agree. I think there's something there. Especially because when Leo's introduced, and this is again going back to this, I'm obsessed with this like play within the novel, and also this like character's destiny theme, because it starts out with him, or it doesn't start out. I think we see this moment, he's on the beach, he's vegan, he's eating his like sad little cucumber tomato sandwich that Agatha like kind of begrudgingly makes for him because she thinks it's foolish that he's vegan. And he's actually studying to be an actor, and the book he has with him is An Actor Prepares. And the person they call out is Stanislavski. And I was already a little bit familiar with him before because a director I'd worked with on a commercial had talked about how he always uses the Stanislavski method. So I looked into that a little bit, and it's, I think, and I could be wrong, I think he kind of started the idea of method acting. And his whole philosophy is that acting is the experience of a character, and it's really taking on the role, which is exactly what we see Kate doing with her like feeling like she can't get into the role because she feels bloodless, like she isn't that femme fatale. And then Leo here, he wants to be an actor. He's reading the book, and he's brought this with him, and this is the person that he's specifically studying, which is very interesting for you to bring up this like feud between him and his mother. And you can tell that he doesn't really take his mom and her friends seriously. That's why he doesn't drink, because he, you know, in his head we see that he thinks that he's seen the way that they've been with alcohol, so he doesn't want to partake, but he does like smoke a little bit of weed because it helps him like be more creative, I guess, and get into character.
I was just like, I think that's his first time smoking. Like, I don't think he'd smoked before. and Elliot gave him his first like joint, and so I think he's more open to it for sure, and that's why he took him up on it. But you're so right, he kind of like looks down on everyone else for drinking so much
and for eating meat. I can't remember what it was. It was when they were eating dinner, and he was kind of like, I can't believe you'd eat something like that. Like, he definitely shames them for the way that they live their lives. 100%. Like, I think he definitely has, as most 17-year-olds do, has a feeling of like superiority to the adults that he's around. He's also an only child, so he doesn't really have anyone else's age. Like, he's probably been forced to be around adults for a lot of his life and act a little bit more grown up, and yet they treat him like he's so young, which is very interesting.
Except Kate. Kate has a weird sort of, I don't know, she's sort of into him. She makes some inappropriate comments.
She does. What did she say?
Something about how he's grown up or something. Am I
like how
remembering
attractive he is or something?
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah, and then later when Lana asks Leo to go get him, he doesn't want to. So that's really strange too. And I think like because Kate feels so out of control, maybe that's part of this whole looking down at them too, you know?
And to be fair, I think if I was 17 witnessing someone like Kate who's like acting out like someone who's supposed to be an adult, I think I'd be a little bit like, pull yourself together at that age.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Life's hard, but when you're 17, you're like, if you see an adult who's not acting like you think an adult should be, I think it's quite easy to kind of be a bit lowly of them.
I love how you're picking up on these references, because I hadn't, really looked into the Greek mythology, and I love that you know about the
Stanislavski. I could be pronouncing that wrong too.
Method, because those are the clues, right, about what's to come, and I think it's so great when you can pick up on those references.
You've mentioned a bunch of things that I forgot. I think we're
references.
We're both like, I think we're both picking up on things. This is what I love. Like, I always have this assumption that when people read a book, they're picking up on the same things. You're picking up on things that I didn't even think twice of. I'm like, oh my God, that's so interesting. And it sounds like the same thing's happening.
Yeah.
This is why book clubs are important.
So important. I love these conversations.
Is there anything that feels really big that we didn't talk about? Well, I do think, I do think the ruin does play a really important part in the story because, and again, I think it goes back to that, like, play within the play. It's almost like an amphitheater.
He says in the book, the ruin plays a big part in the story, and he kind of spends a bit of time setting up exactly what the ruin was. There used to be plays there with the last owners, I think, and I think that was a big reason that Lana was attracted to this island too, and why they ended up getting it. Wonder if something plays out there.
I think there will be. And kind of like we said earlier, like, I do think that setting is a little bit of its own character here. And then you have this ruin, which I think we are to believe it was a little bit of like an amphitheater where a play would have taken place, and probably a Greek tragedy. If it is a Greek island, it would just kind of make sense. So yeah, I think it's a really cool little nugget that he's put in there for us.
So on that note, who do you think did it? For now. It might change next act and the next act after, but for now.
Well, coming into this, I definitely was Camp Kate. I think it's the obvious one that we're supposed to feel like did it. There's clearly a little bit of tension there. She is maybe not having an affair with Lana's partner. She really wants to get into this role. She also has like a plan in place. Like, they keep talking about how like, oh, she has this plan in order for her to get into character. And there's a moment when she like doesn't go to the beach and decides to, like, for the picnic that she actually initiated, and then sleeps through, takes her play. She takes her play down to wherever she's headed to read it and practice her lines. That's when she runs into Jason and they have that kiss. Did they kiss? Or did they just have like a moment?
I think they just had a moment.
Okay, so it's even more vague. And that's kind of the first moment where we feel like there might be something happening between her and Jason, but it always feels like there's something brewing in her. So I definitely felt like, okay, well, if I was to guess right now, it would be Kate, but I'm sure I'll be like told something I'll be told something later and I'll totally change my mind. And I'm sure there's a twist, because there's always a twist.
There has to be a twist.
But what you're saying about Leo, I had never thought about, and it's really striking a chord with me now. So I want to know.
I think it's Leo.
You think it's Leo? Okay,
yeah,
tell me.
I think it's Leo. Because I think he's the most sort of, you know, he's watching. He's sort of in the background, but I find, well, I feel that he's in his head a lot, you know, and for the first time, he's not when he gets a little high. And I think it might be the sort of situation where he didn't realize it was his mother, and he's also the first person to find her. So I wonder if it's a sort of situation where, you know, oh, there's something evil in the background, but it's really just the shadows. Part 2 of that, you know?
And he also had access to Jason's guns, and we see him hide them all on Jason. Maybe he didn't hide all of them.
That's true.
Maybe he kept one. I think the most important question, which is what the author has said, or the narrator, is it's not a whodunit, it's a whydunit. And I know we've said this like many times, and I think that's something we're going to be looking for as we keep reading through this, is like, what is the motivation? I think everyone has motivation. Jason needs money. Leo feels competitive with his mom. He was also maybe greening out in that moment and a little bit unaware. He would also probably be the person to inherit money if he needs money for whatever reason. Kate needs to get into character. She's maybe having an affair with Jason. The only person left, correct me if I'm wrong, well, that's not true, sorry. I'm having a moment. There's also Agatha and Nikos. Nikos?
Well, I was just thinking it could be sort of a stalkery situation. Like, he doesn't see her very much, so maybe he just wants her to never leave.
That's interesting. Someone to be on the island with him forever, whether dead or alive.
Could be. What about Agatha?
Agatha, I don't think her motivation is clear, but I do think that there's a relationship between her and Lana that could be, you know, revealed as we keep reading. Like, maybe she's in a will. Like, if you're that close to your caretaker, I imagine that there would be a little bit of money upon your passing. Maybe there was something she didn't like about Lana. Maybe she wanted to be Leo's mom. I don't know. But I think we'll learn more about Agatha. And then we have Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot.
The unreliable narrator. What's his
I don't know about Elliot, because I think Elliot has the most to lose. Because Kate doesn't like him, Jason doesn't like him. If Lana's out, Elliot's probably out. Of this group, at least.
Yeah, like, I don't think he would have the means to go to a place like that if he didn't have the friends in high places. Do we know how Elliot knows Lana?
Oh, I forget. I'm not sure, actually. It might be through Barbara or something similar.
Look out for that.
Well, he's a playwright, so
there must be something with what he's written in the past. Or maybe they worked together before.
I think it was mentioned. I just can't remember it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If any of you remember, like,
let us know.
Let us know. Okay, so you think it's Leo. I'm lukewarm right now. I'm kind of in between Leo and Kate, I think. I think you've convinced me it's Leo.
It's Leo.
It's
We're
Leo.
Team Leo.
If it's Leo, we're gonna be so bummed that we call it on the first.
I know.
It can only be one of those people. We haven't met anyone else.
I'm so
Unless it was Lana.
Killed herself?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a possibility. Well.
Oh, that's a good point, because she has been acting strange, right? Or she had been.
She started the garden for Leo. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. But just mood-wise, I think it was mentioned that, you know, she's just kind of not fully there, or there was something on her mind, and Agatha thought so too. So
okay, I'm going to be on the lookout for that as well. Oh my god. Okay. Well, I could talk about this for another 5 hours, but
yeah,
we don't want to break Act 2. We're going to go read Act 2. And we will be releasing the next episode a week from now. So look forward to the next one then when we discuss that part. I'm going to start reading today. I can't wait.
Yeah, if you don't have the book yet, go buy the book. Well, hopefully you do and you've read it, because otherwise we just let you know a lot. But
you're those classic people who show up to book club, you didn't finish, you're there for the wine. You know what? It's fine. We welcome you. If you're here for the Spark Notes, we welcome you. If you're here because you want to tell your friends you read a book and you didn't, you can use this to go to your own book club and be like, I actually know everything, and you never have to open the page. We don't care. We respect that. Whatever floats your boat. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you at book club.